Welcome back to the Forever is the Soul journey. This week is Chapter 8, where Andrew will discuss the title, which is Till Death Do Us Part, and the subtitle, which I have to put my glasses on for, is Transient is the feeling as love passes through the mortal heart. Eternal is the love that propels the spirit forward. So as if you've been watching many of the other videos, this week you'll find a little bit of a different journey. Andrew discusses love in a different way than you've probably heard it discussed before, so enjoy.
Welcome back to the continuation of the Forever story. This week we're talking about Chapter 8, Till Death Do Us Part. Till Death Do Us Part, that's right out of the wedding vows. It's not really reflective of wedding vows in this context, though. What's going on in the story, and I'll say this briefly, and I don't want to give the story away, but the story's starting to drop out of the more ethereal plane into the physical plane. So you're starting to get to know some of the other characters that are in the book that are not dead. So there's dead people and there's live people. And there's an interplay that starts to happen between those souls that have left and the physical people that are still left, that were part of the life of the people that have passed. So Till Death Do Us Part is almost a representation of the separation that begins to occur from the ego as it moves into a process of assimilation. And what I mean by assimilation is that the ego is beginning to assimilate into a much bigger comprehension of what its life was, what its effect of life had been on those people they have left behind, and then their observation of the people that they left behind. So when Till Death Do Us Part sort of represents this idea that there is this parting that takes place through the process of assimilation. As the ego becomes more attuned to its totality, it still has a connection and a feeling of love towards those that they've left behind, as those that have been left behind still carry a feeling of love towards the ones that have left. The subtext in this, or the philosophy, is transient is the feeling as love passes through the mortal heart. Eternal is the love that propels the spirit forward. Now, going back to the title, Till Death Do Us Part, the representation in the line external is the love that propels the spirit forward. Well, even in the physical plane, the soul that manifested the personality that's living out life on the physical plane is being propelled forward through the idea of expanding love. And as we come from spirit into the physical plane, we bring with us our karma and our dharma, and our life experiences are sort of set out before us through the soul's will and determination, if you will, to expand its capacity to understand what is love, what is that feeling, as opposed to within the physical realm where we're pretty much dominated by the limbic system and the biological imperative things I've talked about before, which is sort of a compelling thing in the sense that we're always being pushed forward through our lives by either love or fear. So there's this sort of dynamics that's taking place within us on a very personal level, the capacity to love, to be loved, to love ourselves, to love the experience of being human, and at the same time, the soul's progression through various different stages, where the whole goal and objective is to maintain love, whether one is in spirit or within the physical plane. Transient is the feeling as it passes through the mortal heart. That to me represents the feeling of love in the way that we move through the idea of love in our own personalities. The love of our parents when we're completely dependent upon our parents to provide for us, to teach us, to nurture us, to facilitate our growth. And then as we grow into our independent years from 7 to 10 to 15, there's different kinds of love of friendships, love of groups that we may be involved with. Then there's, first kiss, that whole idea. What is that all about? And that's a sense of infatuation and love when the brain is producing so much chemistry that the consciousness of the experience is so tied to whoever we've determined we love at that point that we could become quite obsessive and think about that person, whether they're in front of us or not. It's just always there. That's a different kind of love. And then there's the love that when you actually find your mate or perceive that you found your mate. In our generation, many of us have been divorced, so we thought we found our mate. We grew for a while under the guise of love, and it probably was a form of love at that point. I've been divorced. The first marriage I had, there was a love. Could it mature, or did it sort of deviate? Did one of us go one way and the other go the other way? Either way is good in the context that it's evocation. It's bringing forth a higher degree and a higher understanding of what is love. And even though it's tragic, till death do us part, so when you have when you go through a divorce, for example, the idea in that is that you made this vow that you would till death do us part, but yet something happened, something facilitated a change, and maybe you weren't able to follow through with that vow. And that's very human. If you look at it from a bigger perspective, you go to spirit and you recognize that perhaps you've lived 500 lives. You've loved many, many, many different people on the journey of being both human and spirit. So we get caught in time and we get caught in the algorithmic patterns associated with whatever culture and belief structure we were incarnating into that puts all kinds of caveats on who we are as human beings in our pursuit of whatever it is we're pursuing. And I think from a spiritual plane, looking down into the physical reality, the manifestation of being human, the soul loves us. It loves us so much that it manifested an aspect of itself called us in order to propel it forward through the physical plane yet again, in order to teach it, the spirit, more about what it is to be whole within the spiritual realm as it pertains to the physical realm. So I guess what I'm suggesting here is that we can't not be spirit. We can have algorithms that tell us that there's no such thing. But, when one gets to a certain point where their whole point of reference is that there is more to life than just the algorithms and the pursuit of whatever it is the algorithms tell us to pursue, I know that there are periods in my life, short periods, where I felt completely disassociated from any sense of spirit, even denounce it. This is silly. I'm not spending any more of my life. Even though I could see energy fields and all this kind of stuff, I rationalized that was just a quirk with my eyes and how I saw. I tried to pull away from it, but it just persisted. So I can look at it and go, okay, my soul has been pushing me, Andrew, for 60 years now to comprehend it. To steal a phrase I've used numerous times, to die without dying, to me, is the pacification of a lot of my own egocentricities, so that the predominant influencer that moves into my consciousness and evokes a bigger picture is love. It's love of life. It's love of the opportunity to experience this earth plane again. And again, an extension of love is faith. It's a trust that, yes, I'm here experiencing this earth plane now, but I will again. So the whole idea of death begins to diminish. It's just part of the unfolding. When I went through a divorce back in my late 20s, that was like a death. And then I moved from Alberta to Ontario, and in that process I left friends behind and people that I cared deeply for, some of which I still interrelate with. The internet is a wonderful thing. But again, like a death period. So in a way, the whole idea and the pronunciation to God or whatever it is that we do in a church, if we were married in a church till death do us part, isn't really true, because we're always growing, and growing often necessitates the letting go of certain things, and letting go can be like the death process. So when I read chapter 8, just so I could reacquaint myself, because it's been a while since I wrote it, what was I really talking about? I was talking about this feeling that love, it doesn't end. It is the drive that facilitates our growth. And sometimes love can be scary. It's risky. You've got to open yourself up. And in order to pacify the scariness of love and the whole idea of opening oneself up, begins to turn everything around inside, where you recognize that it can't be taken away. So it's an internal thing. It's something that you have to find within yourself that liberates you from the tyranny of the egocentricities that create the expectations, that create the viewpoints that love is this. And I don't know that you can really contain. Poets have been trying to talk about love for centuries. It comes down to, what is it? It's a personal thing. It's an interrelationship that is established within yourself between you and whatever you perceive life to be. In my case, I believe life to be a spiritual journey. I'm just a small aspect of my totality. And I aspire to understand that totality with every passing day. And because I've chosen to live in a more passive state, meaning not fearful, I enjoy the interaction that takes place on a conscious level, which is, to me, a feeling of love and acceptance and self-validation and healing, always healing the parts that have been sometimes forced into letting go of things that you may not want to let go of. You just, because circumstances you had to. You just got fired from your job, or they just made it obsolete. That's painful, that's scary. But as long as you can tap into something inside that assures you that you're being groomed, that this is a journey you're on and you're being groomed. And to me, spirit is love, spirit is light, spirit is eternal, spirit is beyond one's mortality, and that we're all going towards that anyway. So it's building algorithms and belief systems within yourself that allow you to maintain a consciousness that is not so trapped in a construct of time, earth plane time, and an ability to feel and connect with a continuum within yourself that empowers you to take the risk and learn to truly love yourself and let that feeling come through. So I guess those are the feelings and the thoughts that I have regarding Chapter 8. I do want to thank everybody for listening to these videos. I have been interacting with people through Messenger that are in the US and Panama and all over the place. It's really cool. I love social media. It's a wonderful vehicle for anyone that wants to convey some information. So thanks for coming along on the Forever Journey, and enjoy your day.